Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of the Blackbird Grimoire. Welcome to the daily forecast for Tuesday, August 27th, 2024. It is the day of the Warrior King. It is Mars Day, Tears Day, the 6th of Virgo, the 23rd of Hazel, the 6th of Bear, and the 31st of Haynear, which is the haymaking month. Now, in our astrology, the sun is in Virgo, mutable earth representing industry. The moon is fourth quarter Gemini, mutable air representing influence. Mercury is retrograding in Leo, fixed fire representing fragile relationships. Venus is in Virgo, mutable earth representing perfectionism. Mars is in Gemini, mutable air, which is to be pugnacious. Jupiter is in mutable air representing questing. Saturn is retrograding Pisces, mutable water, which is to redefine dreams. Uranus is in Taurus, fixed earth, representing renovation. Neptune is retrograding in Pisces, mutable water, which is spiritual awakenings. And Pluto is retrograding in Aquarius, fixed air, meaning that we need to examine our intentions. So Mercury is retrograde, reevaluate communication patterns. For Saturn, reclaim your authority. For Neptune, reclaim faith, joy, magic, and imagination. For Pluto, reclaim your ability to regenerate. And for Chiron, restore the heroic spirit. Our moon phase is the fourth quarter, so this is the time for graceful release. It is the Gemini moon, so some do's are social events, networking, negotiations. And the don'ts are unventilated spaces, slow communications, and manic distractions. But as this is the day of Mars, be careful of the combination of Gemini Mars and the Gemini moon, especially if you should feel the temptation to speak out of turn, perhaps to say something that perhaps wasn't the most wise or decorous thing to say at the time or in the present company, or if you are feeling a temptation to gossip when you aren't entirely sure about the facts of the matter. The moon in Gemini has a way of heightening our powers of persuasion, and that could be a problem if the aggression of Gemini Mars starts to cloud your judgment. So just go into the day with this understanding with just a little bit of sense of caution. It could get a little bit frisky out there. Our tarot for the day is the Ace of Pentacles. Ace represents the embodiment of the essence of the suit. And so that suit is Pentacles, which is the rational feminine, receptive energy, the earth element, and material action. And the keywords for the cards are seeking stability, having adequate resources, groundedness, steady work, and using available tools. And when everything is all up in the air, which oftentimes, let's admit it, it does feel that way, you can create your own solid ground. And that is what the Ace of Pentacles is essentially encouraging you to do. You see the coin, it's up there, it's up in the air, it's not on the ground where it really ought to be. But when you are in that position, you can control how soft your landing is, what kind of ground you are on, and whether or not you can tether yourself to that solid ground. You do have agency. And so I would think that the encouragement is simply to exercise that agency. Now, today's Celtic Triad reads 3 things a person gains when their mate endeavors to be excellent: peace of mind, wellness of body, and stable prosperity. Now, all of these things are products of the efforts a conscientious person takes in order to look after their spouse, their children, and their household. The sum of our choices combined with making the most of our circumstances, that's the thing that actually creates the good outcomes, even if we don't necessarily have a whole lot to work with. And of course, this doesn't just happen. I mean, a well cared for spouse is much more likely to work towards excellence. And so we need to remember that there's mutuality in all marriages. And oftentimes it isn't so much about, are they pulling their weight to help us, as are we pulling our weight to help them? You focus a little bit more on that. I think you are much more likely to have a scenario in which both people are really willing to work towards each other's good. And besides, we're not talking about, going out of your way for some stranger you don't know on the street. We're talking about your spouse. If you're not willing to go to extra effort for your spouse, I mean, there isn't anyone on earth who you probably will go the extra mile for. Now, that brings us to today's correspondences. They are on the theme of authority. The color is gray, the plant is the mugwort, the animal is the boar, and the crystal is the smoky quartz. Now, all authority really begins by exercising authority over yourself. You're not going to be a leader. You're not going to be able to handle responsibility unless you first exercise that kind of authority and self-control over yourself. So that's something to think about, especially if perhaps you are in a leadership position at your work, or if you're wanting to be more of a public speaker, speaking out about things that are going on today. And goodness knows there's plenty to talk about. Or if you're just wanting to just kind of train yourself into being able to take the lead if the situation calls for it. All of that is going to begin with a lot of self work, and it can take a long time. It doesn't come naturally to everyone. And of course, we all have, our own individual idiosyncrasies that really get in the way of us being able to exercise this authority over ourselves. But just, do the best, take your nature into account, and, plan accordingly. Today's practice, you might drink some lavender tea if you feel agitated. That might be one way to deal with if you feel the combination of the Gemini moon and the Gemini Mars, just kind of getting you amped up a little bit. The lavender tea can, smooth out some of that rough energy. Today's Hermetic principle is vibration, and you might contemplate the ripple effects today, particularly the ripple effects of your own actions, just in case you do fall prey to undue influence from that combination of Geminis today. Today's witch's pyramid aspect is the south wall. That's linked with the element of fire. And of course, it is the drive to get things done. So you might think about how you might be best harnessing your drive to accomplish things that you want, particularly your spiritual goals. And then read a passage of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I specifically chose this because he's one of the Stoic philosophers. And when everything is a bit antsy with the energy and people are more likely to be perhaps speaking out of turn or lashing out in some way, having a good, calm dose of stoicism can do a lot to kind of turn down at least your own internal temperatures. And then you might give the dining room a good polish and cleanse, or wherever it is you commonly eat your meals. That just seems like a good thing to be doing today. Now, for your journal prompt, how can you best face your fears, and will you choose to do so? And I came across this quote in this picture, and I just love the whole vibe of it. Life without courage for death is slavery. So unless we are willing to take risks, unless we are willing to say some things I just have to do, and I will deal with the consequences as they come. If we are unwilling to do that, we remain trapped. We remain trapped inside of our own minds, let alone any external limitations that might be getting in our way. We're getting in our own way at that point. Life is to be lived, and that is going to involve a certain amount of calculated risks, and that oftentimes requires dealing with fears. So contemplating that today and seeing how you might be able to cultivate your courage so that you're a bit more ready to take risks when it is appropriate for you to do so, all for the good. And that really does it for today. Have as good of a Tuesday as you possibly can. If you are interested, you are very welcome to follow me at Blackbird's Brew on X. And of course, the Blackbird Grimoire is available on both YouTube and Rumble. And the Oaken Elder Witchery is very much up and running. Don't get distracted by, having to create a Roblox account. That's just because of a partnership between the companies. Once you create it, you never have to access or think about it again. And then you can just proceed directly to the Gilded group. That's where the group actually is. And then you can actually be in contact with other practitioners and have access to the information that we are accumulating amongst ourselves. So link in the description if you're interested in that. And I think that does it for today. See you guys next time. Bye.